Discuss about how we need to fetch these associations. How we need to fetch these associations using a criteria or query and all. Okay. Let us see whether the records are there in tables or not. The record is there in the address and the record is there in the person. Okay. In a person, there are two records: person ID, which is 2 and 3, address ID 2. Okay. Now let's see how to fetch the records from the database. Let's consider we have load method. Now the relation is that address has the person. Address has the information of person. So what we do is what's the ID that we have? 2. And let me typecast into address. Okay. Now let us see whether the information from the person table is retrieved or not. Okay. As per your knowledge, in this case, will the information be retrieved from person table? Yes or no? See, address is there. Address has an association with person. Address information is there in one table, and person information is there in another table. Both of the tables are related through a shared primary key. This is the case. In this case, if I load the address, whether the person information is loaded or not. In this case, I'm executing get street name of the address. In this case, is the person information loaded or not? I'm executing a non-primary key getter method here. Will the person information loaded or not? Will not? Why?
Based on the something, they are doing the one data, but not any relation.
See, already the relation exists, right?
Relation exists, but for the ritual purpose, some applications, they are doing some application, they are doing some ritual application, and if you bring the relation with the other, what is the
see, there is a table address. Already address has a shared primary key relationship with person. Okay, and if there is a relationship with person, why to write a separate code to retrieve the information of the person? Why can't we retrieve the information of the person through the relation of address? Understood? If there is no, if such thing is not possible, then there is no use of relations. See, person is there, address is there, address is related to person, and if you could not able to retrieve the information of person through address, then there is no use of relations. Understand? Now, what my question is, in this case, whether the person information is fetched or not from the database. Understood my point? See, basically the relations are for that purpose only. We need not to load each and every entity. Okay, if you load one entity, all the related entities can be connected. Now in this case, let's see whether the person information is loaded or not. Definitely the address information is loaded just because we are executing non-primary key getter method. Now, is it loading the address person information? No. Person information is not being loaded. Now, is it loading the address information? Yes, just because in the address we are calling a non-primary key getter method. Now, when the person information is loaded means, okay, when we execute the getter method of the person, when we execute the getter method of the person, then only when we execute the getter method of the association, then only the associated objects will be loaded. Understand? When we execute the getter method of the association, then only the associated objects will be loaded. Now here both address is loaded just because we are executing a non-primary key getter method of the address, and person is also loaded just because we are executing the getter method of the person. In an association, if you want to load the associated object, let's consider like person is there, address is there, person is there. Okay, address is a child object of the address is the parent here in this relation. Address is the parent and person is the child. Now, if I want to load the child object, just what I need to do is I need to execute the getter method of the child object. Then only the information of the child object will be loaded. Until we execute the getter method of the child object information will not be loaded in a relation. Whatever the relation it might be, one to one or one to many or many to many or many to one, whatever the relation it might be. Okay, if you want to load the child object, just what we need to do is, okay, from the parent object just execute the getter method of the child. Automatically through the relation Hibernate will execute the query and it will hit the database, will load the child object information and will put into the corresponding object. We need not to do that. We need not to explicitly fetch the child object information and append it to the parent object. Hibernate will do as per the relation. Understood? And that will happen only when we execute the getter method of the child. Okay? That's how we can fetch the information. Okay? That's how internally it will happen. And if you go for get, now if I execute get address dot get street name. Now, will it fetch the information of person also? Now, will it fetch the information of person? Yes or no? Will it fetch the information of person or not? Speak out, man. If you will it is yes, then tell yes. Otherwise tell no. Whatever it may be, you need to speak out. No? Why do you think it is no? Okay, since we did not execute get person, the person information will not be loaded. That's what you mean to say. Okay. Now the person information is not loaded. The address information. The address information is loaded, but the person information is not loaded. Now, if I don't execute the getter method of street name, I do not execute anything related to address. Now, in this case, Is the address information loaded? Yes or no? Is the address information loaded? Yes or no? Definitely the address information will be loaded just because it is not load, it is get. In get, it will be like a eager fetching. Okay, when we execute get method, then itself the information will be loaded from the database, but not the associated information. Okay, the associated information or the associated POJO objects will be loaded either by get or post. Sorry, either by get or load. Whatever the way it might be, the associated objects will be retrieved from the database, or the associated object information will be fetched from the database only when we execute the getter method of the associated object. Now address is there, person is there, address has the association with person. Then either through get or load, if when we load the address, the person information will not be loaded until we execute the getter method of the person. Okay, this associated information loading is it different from is it different from get and load? Is the associated information loading or is the fetching of associated data, is it different from get and load? No. Either we use get or we use load, the associated POJO object information will be fetched from the database only when we execute the corresponding getter method of the associated object. Until we execute the getter method of the associated object, the information will not be loaded from the database. Understood? We call this as a lazy loading. This concept, okay, fetching the information from the database only when the getter method is executed is called as lazy loading. See, fetching the information from the database only when the getter method is executed. We have seen using get and load. Let us see how we can fetch the information using query and criteria. How we can get the associated information using query and criteria. Okay? It will be for any relation. Okay? Fetching the information from the database for associations will be the same for any relation. Okay, I will tell it for one-to-one. You can imply the same thing for one-to-many or many-to-many for any relation. No. Just I am fetching the information from the address, and I am printing the size of the list. Okay, let us see what happens in this case. Is it fetching the information from the address? Yes or no? Yes, just because We are fetching the information from address. Is it fetching the information from person? No, just because we have not yet executed the getter method of the associated object person. So, whatever the way it might be, whatever the relation it might be, either one to one or one to many or many to one or many to many, or we fetch the information either by using criteria or query or get or load, whatever the way it might be, the associated objects will be loaded only if we execute the corresponding getter methods. Okay? So, now I'll get the first object. First object will be the first address. Get person. Now I'm printing the person information. Now will it be loaded? Will the person information loaded in the from the database? Yes or no? Yes. So address information is loaded, as well as because of the getter method, even the person information is loaded. Understood here what we have done? Understood what we have done here? There is a list, and from the list, using get method, we are getting the first element, and for the first element, we are executing the getter method of the person. Understood? In the list, we are getting the first element, and for the first element, we are executing the get person method. Understood? Now, let's consider like I have to get the information from the address, okay, where the person name is, let me see, Ravi. Okay, I have to get the information from address where person name is Ravi. So what I will do is from address. Sorry, where person age is greater than 25. I have to get the information from the address where person age is greater than 25. Let me make it 22. Okay. Now let me fetch the person information let me fetch the address information whose person age is greater than 25. Okay. Now, in a normal query, how we can write that means select star from HCU underscore address. Okay. Comma HCU underscore person. I'm taking the alias. Address dot sheet. Address dot door number. Where address dot address ID equal to person or personality. This is the thing that you need to write. Am I right? Get the address information from person where person dot age is greater than 25. This is the whole query that I need to write. I need to relate the address and person through this condition. I need to relate the person and address through this condition, and then let me make it ADDR so that it will not be conflicting with the existing keywords. So I need to relate the address and person through this condition, and then I need to check the condition where person dot age is greater than 25. Understood? Understood this query? Now, if I execute this, where it is? Where is the result? Where is the result display? Where exactly? I'm not sure where exactly this will be displayed. Okay. Now, street Lingampalli and door number is 1234. If you execute this, the results will be displayed here. The street is Lingampalli and door number is 1234. Okay, so because of this execution, okay, the records are displayed. So the same query how we can write in Hibernate, like get all the address objects whose person age is greater than 25. Now the same query can be written as that's it. From address where person dot age is greater than 25. In address, is there an attribute person? In address, is there any attribute person? Yes. It is associated with person. In person, is there any attribute age? Sorry, age? Yes. So, simply we can write from address where person dot age is greater than 25. Okay? So, which one is simple? Which one is simple? Either SQL query or a HQL query. Even it is simple for us to develop. It's very simple for us to develop a HQL query. Okay? As well as it's very simple enough to understand. If you see HQL query, we can get to know why that is used. Yes, it will fetch the information from the address as well as person, and one object is fetched, that information is there. So that's how it will be. Okay, just if we have associations, and getting the information filtered from the associated information will be very easy. Okay, just writing project class attribute name, associated attribute name dot something. Let's consider like person has some other details. Okay, then person dot details dot height, like this. Just we can navigate to n level very easily. Okay, in person, let's consider in person there are details. In details there is height. Then we can simply tell that person dot details dot height is greater than 20. But if you want to get this association, we need to write a big query in Hibernate. But that kind of thing is not required. Understand? That's how it will be. That's how the associations can be fetched very easily. The associated information and the conjugation in the associations can be done very easily using Hibernate. Understand? If you want, you can note it down. This SQL query. Getting the information address based on the age of the person, based on the associated information. If you see the generated query, okay, the same kind of query is generated. If you see the generated query here, the same kind of query is generated. Okay, is the query almost the same? Is the generated query almost the same that we have developed? You know about the select list? Almost from here it's the same, except aliases it's the same. Okay, from here, okay, both are the same. So whatever we are doing, rather than writing this kind of big queries, we can achieve this complex task very easily using Hibernate. Okay, and how we can do the same thing using a criteria. Okay, just how we can fetch the associated information using a criteria. Let us see. Let me create a criteria. Here, address. Have written it? Have written the previous query, HQL query? Yes or no? No? Whatever you do. If you want, you can write it. Then what I was asking? Just go for address.class. Okay, and it will create a criteria. Okay, this will fetch all the address objects. Okay, and now in this case, will it fetch the information from the person? No, just because we did not execute the getter method of the person. Only address information will be fetched. Now, how we can get the information of the person? Just by executing the getter method of the person. So, in this case, the address information will be fetched as well as even person information also will be fetched. Whatever the things that we use, either we use get or load or criteria or query, the associated POJO object information loaded will be loaded only when we execute the getter method of that specific POJO class attribute. Okay. Now, how we can apply the previous condition? How we can apply this kind of condition? Okay. Get the information from the address where the addresses person age is greater than 25. Okay. Based on the associated object information, how we can filter the parents? Okay. If it is a query, we can achieve that using from address where person dot age is greater than 25. Okay, and in criteria by default, okay, only this POJO object will, fields can be used. Okay, in criteria by default only this POJO object fields can be used. Okay, but if I want to use even the associated person information, what I need to do is I need to create on the criteria on top of criteria we'll create another criteria. Okay, on top of the criteria we'll create another criteria. Yeah. On the created sub criteria a criteria created on top of other criteria is said to be a sub criteria. A criteria which is created on top of other criteria is said to be a sub criteria. Now, first what we have created a criteria on top of address through session. Okay, the criteria that we create through session is a main criteria. Okay, and the criteria which we have created on top of other criteria is said to be a sub criteria. Okay, now this person criteria is a sub criteria. Okay, and on the sub criteria I am adding a restriction. Okay, on what criteria we have created the sub criteria? On the main criteria. Okay, the main criteria is referring to address. So internally it will check that address person's age is greater than 20. Understood? Now this is how we can do it with address. That's right. But if you use this criteria, if you see what happened, it is fetching the whole information in the same query. It is fetching the address information as well as person information in the same query. Okay? If you use the sub criteria, what it is doing is, it is fetching the person as well as address information within the same query. Something like it is eagerly fetching the information. If you use a sub criteria, okay, it will eagerly fetch the information from the associated objects. Okay. If you use a sub criteria, the information will be eagerly fetched from the associated objects, from the corresponding associated object. This is how we can get the associated object filtration or information using a sub criteria. See, we'll create a main criteria. Let's consider like address is there and person is there. Okay, address is there and person is there. Then we'll create a criteria on the address, which is the parent class, and for the child class, on top of the created criteria, we'll create another criteria by giving the name of the attribute in that project class. What is the name of the project class attribute? Person. So this name we have given here while creating the criteria. Create a criteria on top of this attribute, on top of the object present in this attribute. Okay, so it will create a criteria for person. Then for person, we are putting some restriction that age should be greater than 25. So it will fetch the corresponding information. Okay, this is how, in general, we can fetch the associated information, or we can filter the records, or we can filter the parent records based on the child information. But which one is simple? In this case, which one is simple? Criteria or query? In this case, which one appears to be simple? Fetching this associated information or filtering the associated information based on, filtering the parent based on the child information using query or criteria. Which one is simple? Query is pretty much simple and pretty much straightforward in that case. In general, even if query is simple, many of the people will go with criteria only. Okay? Create criteria, create another sub criteria if required, like that. Okay? Now, rather than creating a sub criteria, what we can do is, there is another approach where we can fetch the information. We can create even an alias. The first argument is the name of the project class attribute. Okay. The second argument is the alias name, or it might be reversed. I'm not sure about that. Let us see. Okay. And for the directly for criteria, what we do is we'll do like this. This will create an alias for the association. And through the alias name of the association, we can fetch the information. Let us see. It might be reversed. I'm not sure about that. Let us see. Yes, it is correct. First argument is the name of the attribute that is associated in the poser class, in the parent class. Okay, here in the parent class address, the name of the project class attribute is person. So we have given the person as the first argument, and with which name? What is the alias name? It can be the same or different. We can give even the name as person. That doesn't matter. But I have given P. So this is the alias name. And using the alias name directly, using the main criteria itself, we can put the restrictions. This is another way. Rather than creating a sub-criteria, we can do like this. But in general, it is better to go with the sub-criteria, so the conditions will be specific. Yeah. Person conditions will be there with the person criteria, address conditions will be there with the address criteria. In general, people will go with sub-criteria approach, but even with this approach also, we can filter the main records or the parent records based on the child information.